Okay, we are a couple minutes after noon, so I just want to thank you all for making the time to be here. This will be a little bit different. My name is Brenda with Neighborhood Services. This will be a little bit different than a traditional focus group in that we'll share a short presentation. We'll open it up for Q&A, and then we'll ask a couple targeted questions. First, I'm going to pass it over to the lead planner on this project, Ambika, and then after that, Robbie Aaron will follow. So thank you again. Over to Ambika.
Thank you so much, Brenda. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ambika Adhikari with the Community Development. And today I'm here with a lot of my colleagues, but basically this brief presentation, myself and my colleague Robbie Aaron will make. We will talk about the Tempe Tomorrow General Plan 2050. We've been doing it for the past 1 year, but we'll go into a little more focus today into the nonprofit sector. So Robbie, if we can go to the next slide. Okay, so we'll cover very briefly, altogether probably we'll talk about 15 minutes altogether. We'll once again remind you what the general plan is. We call it Tempe Tomorrow General Plan 2050 and how it is going to be developed. And then we'll just list some of the focus areas that might be of interest to you, but feel free to speak about anything that really interests for your particular organization and for particular things that you do. We also want to give you a highlight and glimpse of what we've heard so far, because we've been taking this roadshow to many, many places. And then we'll also tell you what the next steps are so that you can stay involved. Next, please. Okay, so there are 3 basic elements that we're looking at today to describe you the general plan and content, and then also ask for your input, and then also see what comments you might have on what we've already heard from other people. Basically, these slides are the same thing, that there is an opportunity for you to speak, to learn, and to share your thoughts. Okay, here is a list of some of the items, and this is just to sort of help you think when we present. There are many, many elements in the general plan. It's a very large document that contains about 28 different elements. Partly required by the Arizona statute, but in the big document today, we're specifically focused about what might be of interest to you, the nonprofits and faith-based communities. Some of the points that you might like to consider are like affordable housing, avoiding gentrification, aging in place, intergenerational living. In other words, in the same building, there are people of multi-generations, and things like the accessory dwelling units and other units within the same site, where intergenerational living happens, and also how we mitigate homelessness. We speak about park and recreation, art culture in the community might be of interest to many of you. ADA, the American with Disabilities Act, compliant facilities is something that we can discuss. Senior and dementia-friendly environment that Tempe is much more and more focused into. Environmental issues, anything that interests you, climate change and extreme heat, equity, inclusiveness, bike, transit, and circulators. Those are some of the elements, but feel free to add anything that is of interest to you. Okay, we will talk about this a little more later on also when Robbie speaks about, but as a really high level, this slide might be a little hard to read. Really high level view of it is we began this process in March 2022. So it's been actually February 2022. So it's been exactly 1 year, and we've taken this roadshow to many, many places. We've heard from many people. We've organized many meetings. And we continue to do that all the way to the adoption of it. And after we hear from all of you, we are also in the process of drafting the first preliminary draft, which we wish to make it public sometime in May. And then we'll take it through the hearing process, finally for adoption, and then eventually for election to the voters in 2024. Okay, so what will the general plan cover? Many of you are very much familiar faces. You speak with us all the time. You're very engaged in the community, so you know it. So I'm not going to belabor a lot of points out here, but just want to remind you that the general plan is the high-level document that guides development and growth for a long term, in this case, for the 30 years view. And then most importantly, it reflects the community's vision for the future. So it's not only something that is kind of abstract, but it's visionary. And then it guides many of the planning things that we do in infrastructure, economic development, and other elements. Next one. This diagram should help you a little bit also. On the top, this is one way to look at it. There is a general plan. There is a hierarchy. Below that, we create transportation master plan, water master plan, and so on. And then we have high-level documents that we come to you very often that have principles like character area plans, forestry master plan, climate action master plan, and so on. And then we go into much more of the implementation specific plans, like we have beach plan, beach park plans, area redevelopment plans, and eventually the regulations and the codes that implement the plan, like the zoning code. So this gives you, in a nutshell, how the general plan kind of sits on top to guide all the documents that we do. Next one. Okay, so as you remember from that particular diagram, the one that are at the base of the pyramid, like the specific planning, zoning ordinance, are not general plan. General plan is really high level vision. Next one. So let me go into a little more in depth in terms of those 28 different elements that I spoke about. And we, the staff and everyone, we put it together in different chapters. This is the structure of the 2040 general plan also, so that similar elements are bound on the same kind of chapters. We've got 6 different chapters. The first one is the land use and development chapter. It has many different elements, including housing, land use, community design. Similarly, the next chapter will be economic development, and it basically speaks about growth area and cost of development. And we also go into economic development opportunities. And circulation chapter, again, a big chapter that relates to transportation, talks about pedestrian, transit, parking, access management. And let's go to the next slide. Similarly, there are other chapters. Environment and conservation deals with environmental planning, water resources. If we do climate change, it will be in that. And open space and recreation is another chapter. Public facilities and services, another chapter, which has many other elements, including public building and services, things like safety and the code. So that overall is the structure and the content of the general plan. And those are based on the size of the city. We are approaching 200,000, between 180,000 to 200,000 people now. So those will be applicable to all of us by law. In addition, we also have an option to add a few that really emphasizes our vision and our values. So we have historic preservation, economic development, pedestrian-oriented design, aviation, climate change, and extreme heat in public art and cultural amenities. Those will be the new elements in the 2050 plan that we are proposing. Depends on what everyone thinks from the public side. Next one. Okay, so how it will be developed? Let me go into some of the highlights. Basically, we look into the previous plan. That becomes our basis because that was something that was approved by the people and also was voted by the community. Then obviously we continue to take input from council appointed community working group, which you probably know meets every month, first Tuesdays of the month in the library. And then we also have a technical advisory group, which has almost 70 members from the different partners and also the community and boards and commission representation and staff. And then input from people like yourself, the stakeholders. And we also eventually are going to be sharing this document with the surrounding jurisdictions. And then we continue to get the guidance of anyone who is in the city. Next one. Okay, so in order to do that, we also do online surveys. We've already done 3, and we do public meetings. And again, we've done quite a few. And then we meet with specific people like yourself. That is the specialized meeting that we are conducting today. Actually, next week, we'll also be meeting with the business community as a focus group. Next one. Okay, so after the draft is produced, which we want to share, we plan to share it in May. It is shared with everyone, and they can continue to give suggestion, comment, and input into that. Next one. Okay, so the final version, after we get all the comments into the draft, is presented to the council. There's a process to do that. We go to Development Review Commission, then we go to the council, and then after the council adopts, which we want to do it by August or September, we take it to a vote in March 2024 to align with the election that's already happening at that time. Next one. Okay, so with that, I'm going to ask Robbie, my colleague, to talk about what we've heard, and we will seek your feedback from that. Robbie?
Thank you, Ambika. So I'm going to briefly go over the review of public input to date, and then what we'll do moving forward to get more public input throughout the process of this plan. So as Ambika said, we started this process last year, and in June and July of last year, we did a kickoff survey that was 10 questions long. We had about 356 people respond. They ranked their preferences for a list of items that they felt were important to them. And this really will guide the community's vision for 2050. And then there was also some open-ended and aspirational questions that we asked to kind of get a little more feedback and a little more input into the plan. After that, on October 26th, we had our first community workshop, and then our second survey also corresponded with this. This hands-on workshop was done at the Legoland Discovery Center at Arizona Mills. We had 153 people attending that meeting, and it was a meeting where we brought a consultant in to really do a visioning exercise with Lego and then other found objects, and really people built what they wanted to see Tempe look like in 2050. And then we went around the room and talked about what everybody's models were and what their vision was. We also had a survey that corresponded with that, and we got 115 responses on that. Then we had a more traditional style meeting at the beginning of January 19th, and so about a month ago. We had one via Zoom at noon time, and then a second one in person at the Tempe History Museum. We had 43 people attend the two meetings, and then through the responses, we got about 420 survey responses for that survey. So that was really great feedback, and we are currently working through those responses and incorporating them into the general plan draft. Other places we've done feedback, we were at Arts in the Parks. We've been at other events like the Escalante Fall Festival. We did a movie in the park. We did the Unity Walk. And we also had a table at the Tempe Fan Con at the library. So we've been a lot of places over the course of the past 8 months or so, and got a lot of good feedback. And here are some of the common themes that we saw: access and proximity, accessibility. I'm not going to read through all of these. Preservation, trees and shade equity, increasing the tree canopy, water, renewable energy. So these are just some of the common themes that we've heard throughout this input process. Aside from going out to the general public, as Ambika had mentioned, we also have a community working group, which is a council appointed board. Currently, there's 17 members. They represent businesses, professionals, and other institutions in Tempe. And we hold a hybrid meeting at the Tempe Public Library and one of the meeting rooms downstairs. It's also on Zoom. It is a public meeting, so if you want to come and hang out and listen, you can, or there's as with any public meeting, some time to give your input at the beginning. We've also had, aside from the first Tuesday of each month, we've had a couple extra meetings as there's a lot to get through, so we want to make sure we get through all of that. We also have our technical advisory group, as Ambika mentioned. As he said, this is staff and representatives from city boards, commissions, and then other partner organizations like Downtown Tempe Authority or ASU, organizations that we work with on a day-to-day basis throughout the city to make sure that we're getting good, sound advice on the more technical, like nitty-gritty things in the general plan. And they meet on the first and third Tuesdays at the Tempe Transportation Center. So next steps, we are having focus group meetings like this one right now. So we'll have one today, and then we have another one on Tuesday. In March, we'll have a spring community meeting. That'll likely be toward the end of March, where we get a little more input about what we've heard. and then take that and continue to revise our draft. We'll have a council work study session. We'll be at council work study session on April 27th. And this is really where everyone will start to kind of see what the draft looks like, because we'll be presenting on the draft at that time to council and getting their a little more direction and vision from council at that time. And then after that, we'll be at various boards and commissions during the draft process, and then we'll have community meeting in May of 2020 of this year to review the draft plan. That is all we have. So this is our contact info. If you have any questions, as I said, I'm Robbie Aaron, and Bika spoke previously to me, but we also have 3 other staff members, Jacob Payne and Shauna and Brenda, who also help us out from the neighborhood services side. So you can feel free to contact any of us if you have any questions after this presentation or want to give additional feedback. And I'm going to go back a couple slides so that we can start the Q&A process. So Brenda, I'm going to let you take over from here.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for putting your name and organization in the chat. Let's see, we first want to open it up for Q&A. Does anyone have any questions related to the presentation that before we get started in asking you a couple of questions? Don't be shy. Okay, so basically what we would like to know, like we covered the slides that may be pertinent to nonprofits and faith organizations. And we would like to get your feedback on some of these chapters on how you would like to see Tempe develop in those areas. So Robbie, maybe we can go back to that slide. And then maybe and then maybe we can pull up, let me take a look and see who's in the chat here. Octavia, Tempe Community Council, Karen Gitlis, Maple Ash, John Hopper, Future for Kids, and Genesis, Tellez, and General House from Pure Solutions. So taking a look at these categories, if you could just share a couple, 1 or 2 that maybe apply to your organization, feel free to unmute since we're just a small group.
I'm not sure what you just requested of us.
Like related to what your organization does, do any of these elements like touch upon those areas?
Okay, I can share that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm a longtime member of the Maple Ash neighborhood. I rented a house here in 1980 and subsequently bought it and married. And we've been here over 40 years now, or 38 years. That's how long I've been in the city, actually over 40 years. So I am interested in historic preservation, that is, and neighborhood association. So I'm a longtime chair of our neighborhood, and we have a great interest in preserving our neighborhood. We have small houses, but they were all built at the turn of the century. Just a couple really are that old territorial, but they go from after we were a territory from the 20s up into the boom in 45, where we had, after the war, all those houses are historic now from the late mid 40s. And I work with the Tempe Historic Preservation Foundation. We're dedicated to preservation of our past. I'm sorry, I can't reel the mission statement off our mind, but everybody please come to Hayden Ferry Days at the Tempe History Museum on March 5th. And my big concern is that I appreciate and respect the process. Every process we've done, because of the feedback you get, you have become better and better at interfacing with the citizens, I think. And I'm thrilled with that part of it. You know, there's a but coming. And the but is, I feel that historic preservation does not get its full needs met, and should have some sorts of, like my idea at this point, and I may be way off the mark, but I think we should have a dedicated line in the budget to help people with historic houses preserve their house, like re-roof it. We go to some extent to preserve what we have, and a lot of people need help. Some people don't, of course, can take care of their needs themselves, but a lot of people could use a hand with things like re-roofing, or some sort of benefit from being part of the historic preservation community. Until we get input, until we get buy-in, total buy-in from the city of Tempe, we will never realize this. And that has been our story. Now, there was one year where I sat, the last general plan, I sat in every single meeting and acted as if I were on that group. And we did, we talked about historic preservation at that time, but this time I have not been involved. One of my first questions was, how did you interface with the public up till now? I just haven't been involved because I've been involved in other things. So that's my basic spiel of what we're about and what we hope to see in this general plan. And I'm a little bit concerned from the little bit I hear that we may not be there yet in this particular plan with a quantity of things to support historic preservation. And I'm sorry for my long speech.
Thank you. No, that's excellent. That's what we're looking to hear. Before Ambika, before you go, Robert Moore is on our community working group, and he invited us to go to the Haynesbury Day, and Jacob will be there, and we'll be putting out a call for volunteers to go and hang out with Jacob that day and to capture feedback directly on this element. So thank you for that feedback. And sorry, Ambika, to cut you off. I'll toss it over to you if you want to answer specifically.
Yeah, Brenda, thank you so much. Let me just say a few things, and maybe Robbie and other people can also add in. So Karen, we really appreciate your passion. As you know, we work so closely with you, even personally, on many of the things that we do. A couple of points that I wanted to make. Again, thank you so much for your passion and also the contribution you made to the 2040 general plan, which is the basis for this general plan. As you know, the historic preservation is addressed in many elements in the general plan. One of the elements is the historic preservation element itself that we create because we value it so much. It's not actually, that element is not required by state law to be a separate element. But in City of Tempe, we have a historic preservation element in the general plan that really goes into quite a bit of detail. In addition to that, the other required elements like the neighborhood preservation and stability element that is required also addresses historic preservation. And then also in the other land use chapters, even economic development, and also in the appendices, you'll see many times we talk about historic preservation because for Tempe, it's extremely important. We worked with you, we worked with the Tempe Historic Preservation Foundation, our historic preservation officer, Jack Lechner, and Robbie Aaron, who was interim historic preservation officer, and many people have continually worked with you. We've heard a lot of other good comments from the community working group and also the technical advisory group. I know that we see you in many meetings, but because you've been involved in many other things, you probably haven't been as active in some of the things that we do. We meet more than anybody wants. We have a meeting or the other going on every week. We've heard some of the good things that you talked about, providing incentives for historic preservation. Also remember that the general plan is only the high level. It's on the top of that pyramid. So we will address the vision and put some enabling elements there, which we already have, and we'll continue to add what you ask us to do. but many of the implementation plan will also support the historic preservation element. Most importantly, as you know, we only had like a 3-page historic preservation plan until 2022. Now we have a 200-page, really good, robust historic preservation plan that was provided in, the people provided input. And finally, in June 2023, we adopted that plan. And historic preservation officer right now is kind of working on many of those elements of the plan in terms of implementing it in future. So you are heard. Anything you wanted to add and look at the draft, you're most welcome. If you want to meet with us separately, you're also welcome. If Ravi or anyone wants to add to my long-winded response, you're welcome.
I'll just add one thing, Mbika, if that's okay. And
Yeah.
Karen, I can send this separately, only because I've been working on the budget process, but and it's not part of the general plan, but I can send you at the council meeting tonight on work study session is the first presentation of the proposed CIP projects. And you'll be happy to know that the Historic Preservation Office has in there what you were just saying, funds to help people preserve their homes. So I can send you that link and you can look at the background. Now it's the first blush, so get your comments in, make sure mayor and council know you want to see that move forward. But this is the first time they're seeing any of the CIPs for the upcoming 5-year CIP cycle, and it's included.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you for getting us kicked off on that. I'm going to pick on someone. John, if I can pick on you to go next, and if you could pick a topic here, maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
Perfect. I was ready to volunteer. Hi, everybody. My name is John Hopper. I'm the program director for Future for Kids. Future for Kids is a nonprofit. We do after school mentoring programs for disadvantaged youth around the valley. We're in 16 schools, a handful here in Tempe. And we're located right on Priest and Southern. That's where our office is. So I was part of Tempe Leadership Class 37, best class ever. Yes, I know I have to say that. The biggest issue that stands out to me, or at least is applicable to what we do at Future for Kids, is mitigating homelessness. And what I'm going to hone in on something very specific here that might be kind of niche, but we're partnered with Holdeman Elementary, which is on Priest and Broadway. And across from Holdeman Elementary, there is a Super 6 motel. And the Super 6 motel is, to be blunt, it's really just a haven for prostitution, drug trafficking. I did a Tempe PD ride along, and that was one of the locations we stopped at. I bring that location up is because it's directly across the street from Holdeman Elementary. So we have kids who are already going through their own traumas, and they have to look at that every day across the street. And I don't know if anything's being done. It sure didn't seem like it during the ride along. And I also don't know if it's necessarily a homeless issue or a crime issue, but it's pretty dang severe. And I just wanted to bring that up or ask if the city is aware of that location or what's being done to mitigate that issue.
Thank
So,
you.
Brenda, I can do the initial response if that's okay. Yeah. And then everyone can add up. Thank you again, John, for that very important point that you raised. We actually do have all 3 school districts in our technical advisory committee to provide input. Some of them, sometimes they have attended some of the meetings. I know they're busy in many other things. And also the general plan, again, because it's very high level, it does have education element, a little bit on the public services side. We talk about, what schools are there and what are some of the programs that we have in the human and community services in the city of Tempe that we kind of dedicate to education. So education is very important for us. And on the high level of the general plan, we do have places that we have addressed and talked about it. But if you want to take a look at it and give us a little more specifics, we can do that. You talked about one specific location. Obviously, general plan looks at citywide. That's a very important element that you talked about. We can discuss that with our homelessness people and also the staff who look after the education and other elements, and also the crime prevention elements. So there are two responses to your question. One is on a day-to-day basis, we can definitely, that issue can be flagged, and some of the staff can basically begin to see how they can help. In the long-term visioning perspective of the general plan, we do have some sections we talked about it, and what you've said will also help us craft some of the policies and strategies. If you want to add anything specific to the draft that we have, or if you want to kind of write to us on anything that specific ideas that you have, we'll address that also.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John and Ambika. Paul Bentley is on the line as well. And I'm so sorry. I know that you're the director of, I forget your exact title. I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Paul.
I'm happy to do so. Paul Bentley, and I am Deputy Community Health and Human Services Director here in the city. And one of the areas of focus that I have is homeless solutions. And so specific to that area, it's an area that we're very familiar with. There's a business there known as Max 6, which has partnered with us in the community as far as providing a community garden opportunity to help promote a means for individuals to gain work experience and help assist in regards to not only learning skills, but also a form of income to help transition folks from being in a non-shelter situation into shelter and housing. And so that's something that's happening right beside that location at Broadway and Priest. In addition to that, our law enforcement is very well aware of the area, partnering with Max 6 in this entity, and then also our homeless solutions group and outreach specialists it's now 24/7. And so if there are specific concerns like the one that you presented, or a specific act in which it is what is being witnessed is something where it is clear that an individual could use some form of assistance, whether that's through crisis response or homelessness, we do have a Care and Hope line, which is 480-350-8004. That is a 24-hour line. And in that, we also have our crisis responders available 24/7, and our homeless outreach staff available as well. So, as far as the area itself, it is an area of focus for our departments as far as providing services in many different ways, but also for any of you that may be seeing a need, we also are putting that information out there specifically to the Care and Hope line and for either a crisis response or homeless solutions response. So thanks, Brenda.
Thank you so much. Okay. And let's see, Octavia had to hop off, but she left a note that these are areas that are specific to her, so we'll connect with her separately. Let's see, are the Jennifer still on? If I can pick on you all, if you wanted to. If you don't want to, that's okay.
No, thank you for inviting us here, Brenda. This is Genesis Tejas with Peer Solutions. So an area that we've been focusing on a lot and always is equity, of course, and tying that really to environmental issues and climate change and focusing on extreme heat with our youth. And so we've been talking to them, about who are the people that are, facing extreme heat. Those are the people who are unhoused. Those people are often LGBTQ community. These are people who don't have support, outside of, or support at all, really. So working with our youth to be able to have also connecting it with intersectionality and how this all ties in together, and how we can include the youth in creating solutions and addressing extreme heat disparities. And then we also have been focusing on the promoting art, culture, and community aspect. Our kids have a podcast, and so for example, they have a club at Tempe High School. And so they'll talk to their club on campus, and they'll interview students about what, they're seeing on their campuses. And I think our question to you guys would just be what you all are doing to, include the youth, or how we can support that youth voice being a part of this general plan. Thank you.
Brenda?
Yeah, I was going to let you speak first. I didn't know if you wanted to go ahead.
Yeah, let me add just a few things. We do actually have, that's very important point. In the technical advisory committee, we do have a representation from the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. They are actually very conscientious in attending the meeting and providing the input. We really value the input of the young people in the city. That's why we have kind of contacted the school boards and also the advisory committee and all those points. But maybe Paul or someone else can also add, but this is something that we really value quite a bit.
Thank you, Ambika. This is Paul. I have nothing additional to add. That was very, very well stated. Thank you.
I can add a little bit, Ambika. Aside from just our representative on the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council, we are also looking to work with the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council to do some more targeted outreach within the schools. And we haven't quite nailed down what that looks like yet, but it is something that we're working on. And perhaps, we could meet with you guys outside of this particular setting to get some more input on what ways you guys reach out to youth and potentially even could help us foster some of that outreach to our youth population as we move forward with our draft and even just the community meeting coming up in March. Part of what we're going to do in March is kind of like we'll meet you where you are kind of thing, aside from our community meeting, to come and kind of talk about what we've heard and what still needs to be added. So by no means is any of this done and set in stone. This is a living, breathing document all the way till it's voted on and adopted, and even then it can still change. So I think we can definitely work with you guys to get some more youth involvement throughout this process. And I did want to say, you brought up some good points about equity and climate change and heat mitigation and who really takes on the brunt of that. And we will have an entire section related to climate change and extreme heat. And there are goals and policies in there related to those sorts of things. We're working hand in hand with our sustainability folks to create that new chapter.
And I'll just quickly add as well, I think we shared some of the different activations and outreach we've done. And so I think just what you said, arts is a great way to bring some of our youth voices into the plan. And so within all those Arts in the Park activations, we were in 7 parks in different areas of the city. We had a community art project. And so the input was all related to an art project that they did to share with us input on their vision for 2050, as well as kind of specific to some of our open space parks, art and culture chapters. So that was great, as well as we were out at Escalante at the Fall Festival with another kind of hands-on activity where they were able to kind of build what they would want to see in Tempe, as well as the Lego activity. So it's been a great way to kind of get some of our youth involved that we don't always hear from.
Excellent, thank you all. Okay, let's see. Was there anyone else that we that wanted to hop on or ask questions? Or was there anyone I missed?
This is Rob. Obviously, I sit on the commission, but so I hesitate to say anything. But just to build on Karen Gitlis's points, and I mentioned this I think during the commission session too. I think, obviously Tempe is going through a huge amount of change right now. And it seems like we need more emphasis and more awareness of the impact economic development is having on our neighborhoods. And I would hope that there'd be something integrated into the economic development section. You obviously have the infrastructure costs, but what costs are involved in what plans are being made and what decisions are being made within neighborhood environments, especially as we kind of approach mixed use solutions with old commercial centers. I think there needs to be a better understanding of what exactly the cost is in terms of the impact that that's having on existing retail and other institutions that are in those centers that the neighborhoods might be losing or are negatively being impacted based on the neighborhood's identity, its economy, its social fabric, and its cultural sustainability as well. So, and this kind of plays into historical preservation. It doesn't. It's kind of that mid area between culture and historic preservation. Maybe you could even call it neighborhood heritage or neighborhood identity. But I think that's something, especially as Tempe looks towards denser solutions and different land use approaches, we have to have an awareness of the impact of these decisions that are being made. And I think, obviously there are sections that discuss this in generalities, but I think we really have to have a concise or a more specific measure of the impact, and at the very least document and be aware of the potential impacts so that, we can make better decisions along those lines. Anyway, thank you.
Sorry, go ahead, Karen. Did you have something to follow up?
No, I was just sighing a breath of, like, I don't know, appreciation for Rob. Sorry. Thank you, Rob.
Brenda, can I just add a quick note to what Rob said? That's exactly a very important point. And Rob, thank you so much. You've been very active. You've actually given us some written points, and you will see that we have included them into the general plan draft, respecting the existing businesses, the contribution that they made, the cultural scene. Some of those are really very important, and you also were willing to actually write them down and work on it and then send it to us. So it's not lost on us. Very great, good points. Take a look at when the draft comes out, and if there's anything else that you want to make a change on that, we'll discuss that also. Thank you so much for those good points.
Thanks for your patience. Excellent. And appreciate that update. Yeah.
Robbie or Jacob, do we want to go back to the slides for the next steps? I forgot if we had that one or just the timeline. I don't know if we had. There's been so many presentations, I forget. There we go, that one, yeah. So I guess before we wrap up, we just wanted to end on this slide so we can kind of look forward to see that, we will be reaching back out to you all again for the upcoming community meetings in March. And that pretty much it concludes here on our end, unless Ambika, Jacob, Robbie, Shauna, if anyone else had any other comments or to share.
I don't have any. I wanted to thank everyone for taking time during this lunch period and be engaged with us.
Yeah, same. Absolutely. Thank you all. Thank you, everyone. Website is at tempe.gov/2050, and I'll go ahead and stop the recording and conclude this meeting. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.